Hello, everyone, and welcome to Armstrong in the Loop podcast. I'm your host, Seth Prentice. Today, we are joined by Lauren Shorr, owner of Curio in Zelienople, Pennsylvania. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Before we begin your special part of the episode, I would like to know, what is Curio?
Well, Curio was a brainchild of my husband and myself. About 2 years ago, he started looking in Zelienople for a small space where he could have collectibles, mainly Star Wars and vintage toy collectibles. And since we're both art teachers, we kind of developed an idea that led a little more off of that into the idea of like, what if we had some artists that made some really cool, different kind of pop culture items. Then as we talked about that, it led into our love of art education and our love of both being artists and having art shows. And we kind of developed this like 3-tiered concept of having vintage collectibles, having classes that are really art education based, and then having a gallery space where we have different art and different kind of merchandise and crafts from different local artists and artisans. So, and May will be open for 2 years. So that was kind of our start. And it's nicely grown from being on a side street in Zilly to now on Main Street, which is really exciting. So,
Well, congratulations to you and your husband on 2 years. That's a great accomplishment for any local business.
thank you. We've learned a lot in that time for sure.
So, you said you host classes. I'm guessing you have a schedule and everything online.
Yeah, currently our online schedule is a little jumbled because of people needing to stay indoors. But we do have classes for all ages, and we're constantly coming up with new classes as well as we're finding a need. So we started with just like kids classes, but we have classes that are for adults. We've had adult oil painting classes. We will be having drawing classes. Classes for preschool students, high school, so a little bit of everything. We really want to bring education to the community about art and using art to increase what they're able to learn and know about.
That's fantastic. And I can't not ask this, as I am a Star Wars fanatic myself. How did you get into vintage toys?
It has been a passion of my husband's ever since he watched the first Star Wars movie. And when we got married, he told me that he had a few boxes of Star Wars toys in his parents' basement. And that wasn't really true. There was a lot of stuff down there. And so now we kind of we have a space in our house that has items that he loves, and then all of the things that don't quite fit into our home, he's able to display here. And he just loves giving kids that feeling that he had of kind of coming to a toy store and seeing all the toys lined up. So yeah, he just loves it. It brings out the childhood memories in him. So
Got to love it. All right, now that we've learned more about Curio, I understand you have a special project for our listeners and their kids.
yeah, I actually wanted to just take the time while I was here to be able to talk to some family members and parents about making art with their children, because sometimes I feel like it can be a really scary thought. I know personally, even though my husband and I are both art teachers, we like everything to be super neat and tidy, and we don't like things to get messy at our house. So the idea of like just letting our kids make art and do whatever they want to can be really scary, even for people like us that teach art on a regular basis. So I just wanted to talk about a few different things that sometimes people might not realize as art making, and how simple it can be with different supplies that they have from home. But I think one of the biggest struggles we have as parents is the use of technology. Like, I know my kids love to use an iPad or even my phone, and they have a lot of different really cool painting and drawing apps on there, and that's great for them to learn about that through that avenue. But there's something so special about being able to tactfully touch the different art supplies and to become one with the surroundings. And there's so many different things that occur developmentally when children are actually holding those items and creating art. But something that I've been doing with my kids is just trying to actually find some things around the house that we're able to make art with, instead of always being so concerned about having these high level art supplies or, really quality paper. Like, art making is so accessible, and it can be really fun with things you have at home. Last week, we actually worked on making a color wheel. So it was, a rainbow order that goes around in a circle. And it was great because my kids had a fun time running through the house trying to find different colored items. And I have a 6 and 3-year-old, so the differences between them is really big. So the items that they brought were really fun. But for my 3-year-old, like, that was great just for color recognition for her, that she could find what was red, then find something else that was yellow. So that didn't even take any art supplies at all, but was a really fun way for them to be involved in kind of a learning process and to still make something at the end that was considered artwork, which was really fun. I like to do a lot of things too with, even though we like to be neat and tidy, we do have Play-Doh at our house, or something that's really nice too is Model Magic, which is kind of like a less crumbly Play-Doh, which is really clean, which is nice because the surface doesn't have all the crumbs on it when you're done. But a lot of times we'll do projects with Play-Doh or with this Model Magic, and them being able to kind of feel that tactile clay and to create different shapes out of it. They're learning shape recognition. They're working on motor skills of how can they get their hands to create the thought that's in their brain. And we also use it a lot for color mixing too, which is fun. So if you start out with red, blue, and yellow, as you start to mix those colors together, known as the primary colors, you can create the whole rainbow spectrum of colors, which is really exciting for kids to see that change. So if they took a little bit of red, a little bit of blue, and mixed it together, they would find that it creates purple. So it's a really kind of clean way, instead of all this paint getting mixed around or super messy. It's a fun, clean way to learn about the colors, which is really great. We do a lot with printmaking also, which sounds really scary, but it's really fun and easy for the kids. There's a lot of great crafts and different things on Pinterest, but it's really nice as you follow those to help kind of ask questions and to work on making those discoveries with your kids. So like something that has come up before on Pinterest is using celery to print with. So if you are cutting celery and you have your stalk, if you cut it down towards the bottom, that area that normally gets thrown away or composted, if you take that and look at it, it actually looks kind of like a flower and has kind of a rose looking shape to it. So you can take that and put it into paint and print it, stamp it essentially. And kids can make a really fun piece of art that normally starts to lead into like, what other things can I put into paint and print from, which can be really fun, but definitely should be monitored. But it's a great way to find different items around your house that can help with that curiosity and creativity about, what's this going to look like? What different shapes are there? So I just wrote down a few things, like anytime if you get things from Amazon, sometimes it comes in bubble wrap still, but sometimes not. But that's always something fun to print with. A lot of kids have Legos, and you can use those to print with, and you can build off of it. Like you can, for my 3-year-old, she would probably just stamp Legos all over the paper. And that would be great for her with every different color. My 6-year-old might start to notice that there's rectangles and squares and they're in different sizes. So she might start to create, maybe 4 or 5 squares on top of each other and turn it into maybe a city look or something different. So she might actually try to create a visual piece out of it. But there's things like styrofoam. We all have a lot of paper towel tubes right now. Those are great things to dip into some paint and print with. Even Q-tips, things from outside like leaves, or even taking a stick and drawing with it, are all really great and kind of easy things that you can do at home that really helps to just get their creative juices flowing, because there are so many things that kids learn from making art. It's a great confidence builder for them, especially when a parent is positively saying like, oh, I love how you did that. That was really creative. Tell me about this part over here. It helps to link what they created with why and helps their verbal skills of being able to talk about it. Sometimes it can help their problem solving skills. I know that, when our 6-year-old makes a mistake, she's really quick to erase it. And sometimes we talk about like, well, how can you fix it? If you didn't have an eraser, what could you turn that into? Or how could you create something out of these items that we have? Sometimes we just collect random items from our little art studio space, pipe cleaner, some buttons or beads, maybe some of that little clay or some paint. And we give them a little challenge of like, what can you create out of these different items that's in your container, and what does that become? And it's really fun just to help them have that problem solving. And it's really neat because it really helps self-expression and risk taking, which when I think about that, I'm like, well, when am I having my kids take risks? Not often. I feel like I'm normally hovering to make sure that, we're not falling and getting hurt, and we're not, doing things that are dangerous. And, I'm not great with self-expression and letting my kids wear a costume to the grocery store or like staying in pajamas. So I don't feel like I let my kids express themselves a lot of times throughout the day or take risks. And art's a great way to do that. I know going through Facebook right now is these really cool, you tape different areas off of the driveway or sidewalk, and then you kind of color with chalk pastels or sidewalk chalk. We have sidewalk chalk paint at home, which is fun too. And you paint the different sections in different colors. Then when you remove the tape, it has a really nice crisp outline to it. And it looks like I don't know, it just looks like a really nice, well thought through piece of art. And when we were doing that the other day, and when my kids were doing that, I had to like relax a little bit because I wanted to say like, no, we're going to do red in these spots so it looks really nice, and you're going to do this over here, and I needed to just back away and let them go at it, because the amount of fun that they had and the amount that they learned creating on their own and doing what they wanted to and expressing themselves was so much more beneficial than me hovering over them trying to tell them how to do things the way I wanted to. So art can be pretty simple at home. Sometimes it still does get a little messy and scary, and that can be difficult sometimes, but the amount that they learn is so extremely valuable. I think it's really important sometimes to just let your kids go at it with art. It's easier to do outside. For me, sidewalk chalk is much easier to do outside. And like I said, we have that sidewalk chalk paint. And as we were using it, my daughter asked if she could paint her hand and then stamp it. And I wanted to say no because it's messy and I don't like mess. But I let her do that, and it quickly turned into like, can I paint the bottom of my shoe and then stand on the driveway and see what the bottom of my shoe looks like? And then they were getting, different bubble wands out of the garage, and they were stamping those, and it really turned into a cool learning opportunity instead of me just telling them what to do all the time, which was neat. So those are just some little tips I feel like I can pass along to help some of these parents that feel maybe stuck with wanting to let their kids do stuff, but maybe not sure where to start.
No, that's great. I actually never knew that sidewalk paint was, an option out there, and hadn't heard of the taping off the driveway. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's really fun. I bought our sidewalk chalk paint, but there are recipes also that you can look at. I haven't tried any, so I'm not sure how successful they are. And honestly, even on like in the summertime on nice hot days, you could even just use water in a paintbrush, and that's fun for them to create on the sidewalks too. So.
Well, you mentioned Pinterest, and I can't not bring this up. How many Pinterest fails have you had, especially with your kids while doing projects? Just because everyone enjoys a good Pinterest fail.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm kind of being an art teacher. I feel like I can kind of be like, okay, I'll pick this one because I feel like I've done something similar and I can make that work. But if I was to bake different things on Pinterest, I'm sure I would have like a plethora of things to show you. We've tried a couple science experiment ones before, and those haven't worked out as well as some of our art related ones. But yeah, I think I think sometimes the printmaking can be a little deceiving. Like if you were just to cut an apple in half and try to stamp an apple, it becomes a little tricky trying to get that apple off the page. So sometimes they can be so perfect looking. And I think that as adults is what we strive for in our minds. We think that art is perfect, or if our kids do a drawing, I should be able to tell what it is all the time. And it's hard to get that mentality out when kids are making art, that it really is about self-expression and having fun, and for them to explore kind of uncharted territory. So,
And I think that's what Legos at all ages can do as well. Just watching a kid build, anything that comes to their mind, and then watching some of these Lego masters build, and they're putting together mini versions of PNC Park or Heinz Field, and you're like, I don't even know where to begin to start doing that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think the more we help to foster creativity in kids, and we try to build their confidence of like, that looks great, keep going. That's so important, because we do need adults that are coming up with new ideas and they're creative. And it's so easy to hold on to some negative comments and lose that confidence to keep going. Like I feel like I've talked to so many adults that talk about how they can't draw that, and they had somebody in their past tell them that they weren't a good artist, so they never really tried it again. And art is so much more than just always making something. Like we think about all these different ads and commercials and magazines, and even just different logos of companies, and artists are behind it all. So we have to foster this excitement and creativity in kids, so we have new ideas being developed.
And I think that's great, especially for you as a business owner who has an art studio that can display any forms of art. It isn't just a drawing, it's not a painting. It can be a wide variety. Art is such a loose term for the better of it.
Yeah, and it's been really fun, because just seeing some of the different artists that bring their work in, and they get a chance to talk about how they create their art and what their process is. It's helped to really excite my husband and I about different ways they do things, and how we can, help other kids learn something similar, so we can expose them to different things that we never even knew about, because we too are being educated through our artists and what they're bringing in, which is exciting.
Have parents or anyone contacted you, or maybe, while, you and your husband are teachers, about this is the first time I've had to be home with my children for a lengthy period of time? What would be the best tip to just say, all right, let the kids be kids, but still at the same time learning something while doing so?
We haven't had anyone personally ask us that, but we have been trying to do, like, a couple times a week, we've been doing a Facebook Live video, just for free, so that kids can kind of get the different materials they might need for the project, and we try to show them what they can do. And we talk about some different techniques, but then they can take it and run with it, which is great. I know with our 3-year-old, because our 6-year-old's already doing online and homework during the day, she also has homework pages that we've made for her. But we've tried to do things just even with like a circle and having it be dot to dots, and trying to have her connect those dots together. But a lot of things I've been trying to do with my kids, that I'm not teaching currently, is just to try to keep that idea of creativity there. Like we have a really fun, I think it's really fun game that we play at home, where we draw a line or a little squiggle on the paper. And then you can turn the paper, you can look at it from all different directions, and you have to try to incorporate that line into something that you draw. So it's a great thing to do even at restaurants too, while we're kind of waiting for food and doing different things. But I think more than necessarily working on like, this is how you properly hold a pencil, this is how you realistically draw something, we've just been trying to keep that creativity flowing. But there's so many great resources out there for free on YouTube that have how to draw step-by-step videos. And that's actually something we'd like to start, is for us to offer some more online platforms and learning too. We just haven't quite, done that yet. We started a YouTube channel, but we haven't uploaded anything yet, but we're in the process of that. Our Facebook videos were kind of the first attempt at trying to get some projects and classes out there for kids. But we're trying to develop new things.
Well, that's awesome. And in the podcast details, we'll actually share your information for not only your website, but your social media pages as well, so people can go and find your content on a daily basis. And hopefully maybe they'll use your Facebook videos to start some new creativity in their own home.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Lauren, for coming on today and sharing, all these great ideas. I hope it helps, parents and kids at home, and just maybe we form some new creative people out of all of this. That would be amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
For Armstrong in the Loop podcast, I'm Seth Prentice, keeping you in the loop. Are you enjoying Armstrong in the Loop podcast? Great news! All past and current episodes are available on popular streaming apps and websites. Search Armstrong in the Loop podcast and subscribe today.